Welcome to the channel, Best Value Watches, where we look at timepieces of various price ranges and discuss whether it's really worth spending your money on them. Today, we're taking a look at the $50 Rolex Cellini alternative, the Pagani Design PD-1654. I purchased mine from the Pagani Design official store on AliExpress. If you're interested, the link is in the description. Pagani Design have also released what I'm calling the updated version of this watch, which is a much closer homage to the Rolex Cellini. It has a similar dial to this watch, however it is quite different with a sleeker case design, fluted bezel, as well as a color matched date wheel. This watch also appears to come with a sapphire crystal, which is a significant upgrade when compared to the domed mineral crystal that comes on the watch we're looking at today. If you're interested, that model is the PD-1654 and is also linked in the description. One thing to note though is that the updated model is almost double the price of the original, coming in at just over $90, which is a pretty decent jump in the price. When looking at the specs and dimensions of this watch, we're looking at just your classic 40mm case diameter, 45mm lug to lug. This thing wears like a dream. This is just such a comfortable watch, and it comes in at 10.5mm of thickness, which means it's not too thick. It sits just right on the wrist, and it's just perfect for casual or dressy occasions. The movement of this watch is also definitely one of the strong points. Using a Seiko VH65 Mecha quartz movement, it has the reliability of a quartz, the accuracy of a quartz, but 4 ticks per second sweeping seconds hand. So it gives you sort of the illusion or the feel as if you have a mechanical watch on your wrist. And with the domed mineral crystal, it really is quite nice when you look at it with the sort of purplish blue anti-reflective undercoating. It's a nice domed crystal, so it's got that distortion. Really nice touch by Pagani Design. The 20mm lug width on this watch is a great addition in my opinion, because as I will touch on later in the video, the actual stock strap, the sort of genuine leather strap that came on this watch was not particularly great quality. It was not particularly comfortable for me personally to wear. So if you're like me, you went around your house, you have a 20mm strap somewhere, or if you're like me, you actually have many laying around, you switch it out quite easily and sort of give it a different style, a different look to this piece. Now, unfortunately, there is 2 question marks in my opinion when we look at this watch. What do I mean by 2 question marks? Well, there are things that I'm not sure of. There are things that you're not going to be sure of unless you can test it yourself, which not everyone's going to be able to, and I unfortunately do not plan on risking destroying this watch by testing the water resistance, which is indeed the first thing that I have questions about. The water resistance is claiming 100 meters, which seems like to me probably a bit of a reach, honestly. I think it's probably a lot closer to a 30 meters or 50 meters sort of splash proof watch. I don't think this watch is something you want to bring in the pool, and I really don't think this is something you want to risk destroying, even though it's such an affordable piece. Why would you want to risk just completely destroying it with water damage? There's no point. The second sort of potentially questionable thing that might be with this watch is that the case material is a question. We're not really sure what is the case material made out of here, because when you take a look onto AliExpress, there's 2 to 3 different listings just on the Pagani Design official store, and each of those listings actually has different descriptions. And when you take a look at the description, one states that this is a zinc or an alloy kind of case material, and then the other listing says a stainless steel. So it's a big question. What is this? What is it actually that we're having in this watch? And really, I feel only time will tell. Seiko states that the movement is good for 2 years before you need to have a new battery placed in it. So we're going to see, how does this watch hold up over a 2-year time span. I'm going to wear this thing frequently. I'm not going to be too careful with it other than the water resistance. And I will be making an update video 2 years or even longer down the road to let you guys know how this watch was and if it's really held up enough to be considered worthy of the small price tag of the only $50 that it's asking. Who knows what it'll be in the future, but I'll be sure to let you guys know if I believe my money was wasted or if it's actually a worthy purchase. Also, quite a interesting thing to note is that it has about 4 different colorways to choose from. So you can go with the regular stainless steel with the black, the steel with the blue dial, which is what you're seeing here, or you can go with the sort of plated rose gold and white, or the plated rose gold with the black dial. They all look pretty good. I would definitely recommend sticking more with the traditional regular stainless steel, the black and the blue models personally. Now, when we're looking at the pros and the cons of this watch, some interesting things to note will be noted here. There's not going to be any punches pulled here. We're going to be completely blunt, completely honest about what we're looking at here and the fact that no watch could possibly ever be perfect. Let's start off with the pros. So there's really quite a nice list of pros here. This watch has a lot going for it. And the first thing I want to start with is the fact that, assuming you're not buying this during a holiday time or a time when there's going to be slower shipping coming from China, I found that this watch was delivered very quickly. For me, it was 15 days from the time when it was marked shipped. So 15 days to be delivered from China all the way over to Canada. That's not too bad at all, if you ask me. And I would say the most obvious pro, the one that you're seeing on the screen right now, would be that beautiful dial. I mean, seriously, what a stunning and striking dial for the money. I mean, I've never seen a watch that has this nice of a dial for this low of a price. It's really something that is a statement. I think that Pagani Design on this updated model that they've released is probably the best option, because it's definitely, you can see they've heard the feedback. They've fixed some problems. They've made things better. They've made it more closer to the actual Rolex Cellini that they are trying to create an homage to. So it works perfectly for Pagani Design in the end, because they have made this watch very well, and they've taken the qualities from this watch and made the next one really quite impressive. Let me know if you guys would like to see that watch on the channel. If you would, place an order and we'll wait the 15 days hopefully, and that watch will be here and I'll give you guys my detailed analysis. Now, for some collectors, it's when you look at a date complication or a date function, for some collectors, it is a make or break. It makes the purchase or it breaks it. It makes it where they do not want that watch because it does not have a date function. Me personally, I'm somewhere in the middle. It's not a massive deal to me to have a date function, but it is, for some reason, very satisfying when you're there and you check the date on your watch and you feel good inside to know that you've checked the date on your watch, rather than just being like everyone else and checking the phone. Your cell phone has the date, sure, it has the time, but it feels better when you're able to go and read your watch. As mentioned earlier, it is really quite a nice option to be able to have a domed crystal with the anti-reflective undercoating with just this bluish, purplish sort of tinge that it has, this tint, which is just beautiful. As mentioned earlier, it's great. I mean, and then I enjoy looking and seeing Pagani Design has a couple different colorways. I really hope they add more colors in the future. Maybe a red, maybe a green. Some more colors would be really interesting to see with this new updated model. And what most people would say is absolutely the largest thing this watch has going for it. The biggest pro, the thing that makes this watch so purchasable, such a great idea to add this to your collection for a lot of people. And that is the fact that it's got a Seiko Mecha Quartz movement. For most people, this is maybe not a big deal to you, but to a large collection, or to a large percentage of people who collect watches, they seem to really be drawn towards it. Just the idea of having a sweeping, or what appears to be a sweeping seconds hand, and it's going 4 ticks per second. You have that satisfaction watching it, and then it's got the accuracy of a quartz, and it's still got the long battery life. You're not having to worry about winding this watch up at all. Not to mention that these movements are way more expensive relatively, when you compare them to the Miyota single tick per second quartz movements that you'll see in majority of watches at this price range. If it's a quartz watch, it's usually going to have a cheap Miyota quartz movement in it that doesn't cost that much. And you compare it to the Seiko movements, especially the Mecha quartz, they're significantly more pricey, significantly more complicated, and significantly more ideal for a collector. Now, when looking at the cons of this watch, unfortunately there is a pretty lengthy list, and they're not large cons, they're not things that are deal breakers for most people, except for, of course, the two that we have to start with, which is the case material and the water resistance. I mean, if this is indeed something that they are lying about, and it's something that they're not being 100% truthful about, this is definitely something that is an issue, and a big issue. And I hope that Pagani Design addresses this, and that we don't have to deal with this for future releases. As I mentioned earlier in the video, the strap that comes with this watch is by no means is it like unbearable, by no means is it something that you couldn't make it work, but it's definitely not a great quality. It's something that when you get this watch, you're more than likely going to be finding any way to get this strap off of it, because it's not as comfortable as you want. I mean, it's not as comfortable as it should be. It's not the quality it should be, but for a watch that's only $50, how could you possibly really hold it like against the watch? Because it's super affordable, and there's only so much they could do for a price. There's been a lot of discussion regarding this watch brand online and on watch forums and Facebook groups, and a lot of people just cannot get past the name because, let's face it, it's a name stolen from an Italian supercar company. It's not a name that they have come up with organically by themselves. It's not something that people really are drawn to as much because, well, like mentioned, it's a name that they just took and commandeered and decided that they were going to use. I really think that there's a possibility, there's a chance that we will see them rebrand into an actual watch brand in the future, but only time will tell. We'll see if they ever actually decide to change these things. If they do, I think they have a bright future. So the watch is all high polish on the case. The whole finish on the entire thing is all a high polish design. And in my opinion, it's a bit of a con that it is all high polish. And another con that sort of ties into that is that the finish it's okay, but it's not as good of a quality as they're capable of. And I think that's important to note. And the last sort of notable cons for this watch are really going to be together at the end here because they're not as large of cons, but they are things that I think should be noted. They're things that you should keep in mind. The first one being there's only a 2-year battery life for this watch. So in some cases, for some people, that's just not enough. Maybe you're used to a 10-year Casio movement that has 10-year battery life or 5-year battery life. This is not that. Due to the 4 ticks per second, it results in the battery life itself being down a little bit, not quite as much as maybe previously with other quartz movements. And it's got that 40mm case diameter, which definitely is, for me, perfectly wearable. For a majority of people, perfectly wearable. The 45mm lug-to-lug does make it very wearable, very comfortable. However, for some people, 40mm is a con because it's just still too large. It's too large for them to be able to fit it on their wrist comfortably. So for that, this is a con. And just unfortunately, for different reasons than that date wheel was on the pros list, this is going to be on the cons list. And it's for different reasons. It's none to the fault of Pagani Design and all to the fault of the Rolex that they are copying. So if you take a look, it's got the 31 and the 1 are just too close to each other. They've got, for some reason, the way the movement is aligned, the way the movement works, they weren't able to make that 31 and 1 properly spaced out, which is, it really bugs a lot of people. Some people, it doesn't seem to bug them at all. And if it worked for Rolex, it damn sure works for Pagani Design. And if indeed this watch case turns out that it's not stainless steel, and it turns out that Pagani ended up sort of having their things switched around, and they gave us an alloy case of some kind, the biggest question that I think will this alloy case actually last the 2 years to the battery change of the movement? That is really one of the biggest questions, one of the biggest cons, is if this is an alloy case and Pagani Design are not being 100% truthful with us, then there's no doubt that they are not going to be looked at in a positive light. And that's about it for this video here. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. Please let us know in the comments any ways that we can improve. Please let us know what you enjoyed about the video, and subscribe for more. Please hit that bell, otherwise YouTube is not showing our videos to our subscribers. So please hit that bell, subscribe, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.